The day the skies trembled, the galaxy had waited for peace for a very long time. For centuries, the stars had burned with endless wars, countless lives lost, and worlds turned to ashes. When the Galactic Council finally called for peace, every species in the galaxy felt hope for the first time in generations. They decided to choose one neutral race to keep peace among all others. After much debate, that race was humanity. The aliens expected ships of light, symbols of mercy, and soft voices of reason. They imagined humans coming with white flags, healing technology, and gentle hands. But what came across the stars was something else, something that made the very skies tremble. The first human ship appeared above the central world of the Council. It was not small. It was a giant black dreadnought with red lights pulsing like a beating heart. Then more came 10, 50, 100, until the entire sky was filled with dark steel giants. Engines burned like suns, and the ground itself shook with their arrival. The people below ran to shelters, thinking war had come again. The lead ship was called HSS Vengeance. It was so large that it blocked both of the planet's suns, covering cities in shadow. Its surface was covered with scars and burn marks, each one a memory of battles fought long ago. Every alien watching from the surface felt the same chill. The humans were not coming to discuss peace, they were coming to enforce it. Inside the Grand Council chamber, panic spread. Hundreds of alien leaders shouted over one another, their voices echoing through the hall. Some believed it was a mistake. Others whispered that humanity had turned hostile. The oldest counselor raised a trembling hand and said, "Perhaps they misunderstood our request," but in his heart, he knew they hadn't. A deep voice broke through the noise. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the HSS Vengeance. A tall human stood there, her armor dark and shining under the cold light. Her name was Admiral Keraholt, the commander of Earth's first peacekeeping fleet. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried the weight of someone who had seen too much death. "This is Admiral Keraholt of the Terran Directorate," she said, her voice like thunder in a quiet storm. "We come in the name of peace. But peace is not given, it is made. We do not keep peace with promises," she continued. "We keep it with power." The chamber fell silent. No one dared to speak. Every alien there could feel the truth in her words. The humans had come not to beg for peace, but to make sure it never needed begging again. Across the galaxy, broadcasts spread the human arrival to every world. Billions watched as the dark ships formed patterns in orbit, each one ready for war. Children asked their parents if the humans were heroes or conquerors. No one could answer. Inside her ship, Admiral Holt watched the stars through the view. Her second-in-command, Captain Vale, stood beside her, his voice quiet. "Admiral, they are afraid of us," he said. Holt did not look away from the stars. "Good," she replied. "Fear keeps peace longer than trust." Far below, alien priests lit candles and prayed. Traders closed their markets, and soldiers prepared their defenses, just in case. The skies stayed red for hours, glowing with the fire of human engines. Every living being in the galaxy knew that something had changed forever. That day was not remembered as the day peace began. It was remembered as the day humanity returned to the stars, and the day the skies trembled. The first test of fire weeks passed since the humans arrived. The Galactic Council still argued every day about what to do with them. Some worlds praised humanity's strength, saying the galaxy finally had real protection, but others whispered that the humans were too dangerous, too ready for war. Admiral Keraholt stayed silent through it all. Her fleet waited in orbit above the neutral zone, engines cold but ready to ignite in seconds. She knew what was coming, because peace never lasted long in the galaxy. The first test came without warning. A rebellion erupted on the far side of the Orion cluster. Pirates and old warlords rose again, attacking trade ships and burning colonies. The council debated sending diplomats, but the humans did not wait for orders. At dawn, the stars above Orion split open with fire. The dreadnoughts moved, tearing through the void like silent storms. Thousands of human soldiers were deployed within hours. The aliens had never seen speed and precision like this before. The pirates tried to fight, but their fleets were shattered before they could even form. Laser fire cut across the darkness, slicing enemy ships in half. Human cannons roared like thunder. The battle lasted only 40 minutes, and when it ended, nothing remained but silence and debris. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. People whispered that the humans had ended a war faster than any other species ever could. The council chambers filled with noise again. Some shouted with joy, others trembled in fear. "Peacekeepers," said one leader. "They truly brought peace." Another shouted, "No, they brought control." The argument turned bitter, but Admiral Holt's words were already being broadcast from the battlefield. She stood among the wreckage of the pirate fleet, her armor scorched, her eyes cold. "The threat is neutralized," she said, her voice echoing through every channel. "Let this be the first and last test of peace under human watch." Her tone carried no mercy, only certainty. To her, peace was something you built from ashes, not promises to others. It was a warning humanity's idea of peace looked too much like conquest. Among the survivors of the battle, one pirate ship tried to escape. It sent a message before being destroyed, a desperate voice crying out to all worlds. "They're not peacekeepers," the voice screamed. "They're conquerors in disguise." That message spread faster than any broadcast from the council. Billions heard it, and fear began to grow. Were humans here to protect, or to rule? No one knew anymore. On board the HSS Vengeance, Captain Vale watched the report in silence. He had seen the destruction firsthand. The speed, the power, the coldness. He turned to Admiral Holt and said, "You didn't need to destroy them all. Some would have surrendered." Holt looked at him, her eyes calm but hard. "Surrender is a luxury of the innocent," she replied. "Peace must be absolute, or it is nothing." Vale turned away, unsure if she was right or if they had already gone too far. Outside, the fleet hovered quietly in orbit, each ship casting a long shadow over the burned colonies below. For the first time, the galaxy saw the true meaning of human order, and somewhere, deep in the dark between stars, new forces began to move. Whispers of rebellion spread among alien worlds. Some wanted to fight back before it was too late. Others began to admire humanity's strength, hoping to learn from it. The galaxy had wanted peace, and it had found it. But that peace came with a heavy price. And as the fires of Orion faded, one truth became clear to all. The peace of humans was written in fire. Shadows of old Earth. The galaxy was silent after the Battle of Orion. Every world watched the human fleet with both fear and awe. No one dared to challenge them now. Even the council stayed quiet, afraid that a single wrong word might bring those dreadnoughts to their skies. But deep inside the HSS Vengeance, things were not as peaceful as they seemed. Admiral Kara Holt stood alone in the command room, watching stars drift slowly past the glass walls. Behind her, a quiet voice spoke. It was Captain Aaron Vale. He had been with her since Earth's first space war, and he knew her better than anyone. "Admiral," he said softly, "you've done what no one else could, but some of us are starting to question the cost." Holt did not answer. She kept her eyes on the stars. "You think I don't question it myself," she whispered. "You think I enjoy turning our fleet into a symbol of fear." Vale stepped closer. "Then why do it?" he asked. "Why come here in ships made for war?" When the galaxy wanted peace, she finally turned toward him, her face cold and her voice steady. "Because peace is fragile, Aaron," she said, "and the galaxy never protected us when we needed it." Her words carried weight, because both of them remembered. They remembered the centuries of silence, when Earth begged for help during its darkest age, when diseases, wars, and hunger nearly wiped out their people. The stars watched, but no one came. From that pain, the Terran Directorate was born, a united government built on one rule. Never again would humanity be weak. The Directorate trained warriors, built fleets, and prepared for the day when the stars would call again. But their goal was not kindness, it was survival. Vale looked at the old Earth flag on the wall, faded and torn. He remembered stories of oceans and green lands long gone. "We became what we hated," he said, his voice quiet. "We became the ones who ruled through fear." Holt turned away, but he could see the sorrow in her eyes. "Maybe," she said, "but if fear is the price for peace, then I will pay it." Outside, the dreadnoughts moved in perfect formation. Silent and powerful, they were the pride of Earth, but also its curse. The alien worlds began to whisper new words. The Iron Empire. They said the humans were not peacekeepers but conquerors waiting for the right moment. Meanwhile, deep inside the ship, messages were being exchanged in secret. Some officers, loyal to Captain Vale, began to doubt Admiral Holt's command. They believed humanity could protect the galaxy without turning into tyrants. But they also knew what disobedience meant aboard a Terran ship. One night, Vale found a message hidden in the system logs. It came from Earth itself, sealed under the highest code. When he opened it, his blood ran cold. It was an order from the Directorate: expand control. Secure all trade routes. Establish permanent human garrisons. It was not peacekeeping, it was occupation. Vale realized then that Admiral Holt's fleet was only the beginning. Earth had already decided the galaxy's future, and no alien voice would be allowed to stand in their way. He looked out at the endless stars and whispered, "This isn't what we promised them." Far above, the human banners drifted in space, dark and unyielding. The same stars that once ignored Earth now trembled under its gaze. As the fleet continued its silent patrol, shadows grew long over every world. The galaxy had welcomed humanity as saviors, but they had brought with them the ghosts of old Earth, the anger, the fear, and the will to never bow again. And in those shadows, a quiet storm began to rise, not from the aliens, but from within humanity itself. For when power becomes too heavy to carry, even the strongest hands begin to shake. The Dreadnought rebellion, the silence inside the HSS Vengeance, had grown heavier each passing day. Captain Aaron Vale no longer trusted Admiral Kara Holt's mission. He had followed her for years, believed in her dream of peace through strength. But now, he saw something darker behind her eyes, something Earth itself had planted there. The hidden orders from the Terran Directorate were clear: expand, control, dominate. It was no longer about keeping peace. It was about ruling the galaxy before anyone else could. Vale tried to reason with her one last time. "Kara, this isn't peace," he said quietly. "This is conquest under another name." Admiral Holt didn't turn from the holographic map glowing before her. "You think the galaxy would spare us if we showed mercy," she replied. "You think they've forgotten how they left us to die?" Her voice was calm, but there was pain hidden inside it. Vale realized she wasn't doing this for power. She was doing it to protect humanity from ever being weak again. But he could no longer follow her down this path. He saluted her one last time and said, "Then forgive me, Admiral, for doing what must be done." That night, under the cover of silence, Vale and his loyal crew took the HSS Resolve, a smaller dreadnought built for speed. They escaped the fleet and vanished into the shadows between stars. Their goal was simple: protect the innocent worlds caught under human occupation. They would show the galaxy that not all humans believed in fear. When Admiral Holt discovered the betrayal, her fury shook the command deck. "Find him," she ordered, her voice cold as steel. "Bring him back or burn every ship that stands with him." The Terran Directorate supported her without question. And just like that, humanity turned its weapons on itself. The first battle between humans began over the world of Terran. Vale's ship dropped from warp with a fleet of defectors and alien allies. They faced Holt's full dreadnought line, stretching across the black sky like a wall of death. The people of Terran watched from the surface as the heavens filled with light and fire. The two fleets exchanged no words. They understood each other too well. When the first cannon fired, the silence of space shattered. Laser beams crossed the void, explosions lit the darkness, and ships broke apart like glass. Vale's voice echoed through his ship. "Hold the line," he shouted. "We're not fighting to win, we're fighting to remind them who we are." His crew fought with courage beyond fear. They were outnumbered 5-1, but they didn't retreat on the HSS Vengeance. Admiral Holt watched as the battle unfolded. She whispered to herself, "He could have been my successor," but she gave the order anyway. All batteries fire. The explosion that followed split the sky of Terran in two. The Resolve was struck, engines failing, flames bursting from its hull. Yet even as the ship fell toward the moon's surface, Vale sent one final transmission: "To all worlds watching, humans are not monsters," he said, his voice breaking through static. "We are what the galaxy made us, but we can still choose to be better." His words spread across 1,000 systems before his ship vanished in the crash. For the first time, alien worlds saw that there was more than one kind of humanity: the conquerors and the protectors, the destroyers and the dreamers. When the smoke cleared, only silence remained. Admiral Holt stood on her bridge, staring at the wreckage below. She whispered, "You should have stayed with me, Aaron." But deep down, she knew he had become something she could never be. And though the Directorate declared victory, the galaxy had already changed. Whispers of rebellion grew in every system. Humans began to question their own leaders, and in that quiet storm of doubt, a new kind of peace was born, not from power, but from courage. The dreadnoughts still floated in the stars, powerful and silent, but now, even their shadows could not hide the truth. A single man's defiance had shaken the Empire, and the fire of rebellion had begun. The price of peace. The moon of Tyrone was a graveyard. Burned ships drifted in silence, their broken pieces glowing faintly in the dark. Smoke and fire hung like ghosts between the stars. The war between humans had ended, but at a cost no one could count. The HSS Vengeance floated alone above the ruins. Inside, Admiral Kara Holt stood before the main viewport. Her reflection flickered across the glass. Mixed with the fire of wrecked ships, she had won the battle, but she felt no victory in her heart. Her crew worked quietly, afraid to speak. Every screen showed loss reports, thousands of soldiers gone, and among the fallen was Captain Vale, the man who had once been her closest friend, the man who had dared to defy her in the name of mercy. For a long time, Holt said nothing. Then she gave a quiet command. "Open a channel," she said, "to all Terran ships." The officer hesitated but obeyed. The signal went out across the fleet, reaching every human warship and outpost in the galaxy. When Holt spoke, her voice was calm, but her eyes were heavy with regret. "This war is over," she said. "We came here to protect, not to rule. We called ourselves peacekeepers, but somewhere along the way, we forgot what peace really meant." Her words echoed through every ship. "Stand down all weapons, withdraw from occupied worlds, and let the galaxy decide its own path." The crew stared in disbelief. Some wanted to cheer, others wanted to weep, but Holt continued speaking, her voice fading as she leaned against the console. "Captain Vale believed in something better than fear," she said softly. "He believed in hope." With that final message, Admiral Holt closed her eyes. Her strength faded, her body worn from battle and guilt. Moments later, her heart stopped. The commander of Earth's dreadnought fleet was gone. Her final order spread faster than any weapon, across human and alien worlds alike. Fleets began to fall silent, cannons cooled, engines dimmed, and soldiers laid down their rifles. For the first time in generations, there was no sound of war, only quiet. Captain Vale's message, recorded before his death, began to replay across the galaxy. "Humanity came armed because he left us alone once," his voice said. "We'll never let that happen again, but we can still choose to protect, not destroy." The words touched every heart. On alien worlds, children listened in awe. Old soldiers bowed their heads. Even humans who once believed in conquest began to see a different truth. Years passed, and the mighty dreadnoughts were never scrapped. Instead, they became symbols of balance and memory. They floated quietly above worlds, scarred by war, not as rulers, but as silent guardians. Each one carried the name of a fallen ship, each one a reminder of what power can cost. The Galactic Council rebuilt itself, this time with humans not as masters, but as equals. No one forgot what had happened on Tyren. It became a lesson passed from one generation to the next. Peace without understanding is only a pause before war. In time, a statue was built on Tyren's surface. It showed two figures, Admiral Holt and Captain Vale, standing back to back. One hand held a weapon, the other reached toward the stars. Below it, a simple line was carved in stone. They expected peacekeepers, it said, but found survivors instead. And so the story of humanity spread across the stars, not as conquerors, not as monsters, but as beings who had learned through pain and loss what peace truly meant. The dreadnoughts still crossed the stars, silent and watchful, and every world that looked up at them remembered the price that peace demanded. The skies no longer trembled from war, they trembled from memory, from hope, and from the promise that humanity had finally kept.